Now then guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video I'll be showing how to start Now then guys, in this video I'll be showing you how to replace the starter relay and also how I successfully fixed the existing ignition switch, which is great news. It means I don't have to replace the ignition switch, the keys for the tank, which is good stuff. Also I'll be showing you how I'm going to flush and clean the petrol tank. Let's go. Okay, so to replace the starter relay, it's very simple. You've got your main harness connector here, which obviously will connect into here, and also you've got the main power line to the starter motors. This is what I manually bridged in the previous video to get the starter motor run. So before you do this, make sure you disconnect the battery, because while you're manhandling this and these lines, you don't want to bridge these two by accident, because your starter motor will run. Okay, so to do these bits first, you have to remove these Allen bolts that are already in place with the new relay, and they are 4mm Allens, I believe. So undo these, undo this, come on, warm. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Make sure you don't, oh, it's on the camera, sorry guys. Make sure you don't lose the little washers. Okay. Let's do the start motor side first. They've got these little tabs on them, so it'll only go in one way. So obviously that won't go in that way, so it has to go in this way. It helps it keep it dumb footproof, such as me. Okay. I am fumbling around here. There we go. Cooking with gas. Yeah, I haven't got a tab on that side. Just in. Okay. Oh shit. Okay, that's like balled up here. So this is supposed to cover across these terminals, so they don't get accidentally bridged while on the bike. So I'm going to do that all over again. And there we are then. So we've got both the battery and the starter power cables now connected to the new starter relay, and I've got this cover over it as well to stop any unnecessary bridging between the 2 points. Okay, the new starter relay came with a fuse already installed, which is great, so I've left it in there, and the other 30 amp spare fuse I've put back into its spares location, which is just under where the starter relay sits. So next step obviously is to reconnect the connector. Hopefully get a nice satisfying click. Nope, it does go in. I will also cover that with some insulation tape. There we are guys, new starter relay, safe and secure in its new home. Cool beans. Okay, so now onto the ignition switch. In a previous video I made the assumption that to replace the ignition switch, or remove it, shall we say, I'd have to drill out these shear security bolts. But thankfully Honda had a bit of a better design. So here you've got 3 TT10 Torx bolts, and if you remove them, the actual electrical side of the ignition switch separates from the key side with the barrel, which is great, which means potentially we could have just replaced just this bit here if it was unrepairable, and still maintain the original key set. So like I said, it's just 3 Torx bolts, very easy. Undo these. That's already loose. Yep, that's lost forever. On to another dimension, never to be seen again. Great. And there we are. That's the ignition switch removed. To fully remove it from the bike, obviously you gotta remember the other end, which is connected to part of the loom underneath the instrument panel. And to remove the instrument panel out of the way, I had to undo 2 bolts here onto the center headstock of the frame, and then it's just right now it's just laid down here, as you can see. Okay, so I've got the ignition switch now here on the bench, just to give you an indication how it works. So in here, that will rotate as you turn the key on the barrel, and obviously as I explained before, when you key it to the start position, this red line, the ignition line, will bridge the red and black line here, which is the ignition line then to the fuse box. So as you saw on the computer, this was not working, so I had to bypass it with a separate toggle switch. So once I removed this, I thought the best thing to do before I commit to buying a new one is just perhaps see if I can repair it and save myself some money. So I'll show you how to disassemble and inspect this switch now. Okay, to disassemble this, what I did is using just a pick. At the side here you've got these 2 tabs that hold this section within the outer casing. So I just wedged it in between and just picked it out. Took a bit of fiddling, but eventually I got it to separate, such as this. So you set that aside. So I don't know exactly what you call some of these parts, but essentially for what I can see, as the ignition switch rotates, you got some tabs below, and they make contact with contacts on this section here, which obviously bridge the different points. So I'll just move that without losing everything I can. Yep, lost everything. So under here you have the contacts that represent the different wires on the back. So obviously we're looking for contact between the red and the red and black. So it would be these 2 and that one there, and also that one and the red, which would be contact between these 2. So when I first took this apart, there was a film of corrosion over these contacts. So I took some sandpaper, 240 grit I believe, and just gave it a rub over until it was clean and shiny again. Okay, and that was it, and then we reassembled it, and I'll test it and show you. Okay, so reassembled the ignition switch, and I'm just going to test it from the end connection here. So I've got it probed here. Currently the switch is set, would be the off position on the continuity setting here on the multimeter. So if I turn this on now, essentially I should hear a beep that's showing them contacts are now clear, and it's doing its job of bridging them 2 lines. So let's find out. Fucking yes, back of the net. Okay guys, so I've reinstalled the ignition switch to the back of the, or the electrical side of the ignition switch back into the key and barrel side. As you saw previously, I've hooked up the starter relay and I've connected the battery. So all being well now, when I flick that switch, I should get ignition lights proving that the ignition switch is still working, and also when I flick the starter motor, I should get the starter motor going, proving that the starter relay is also doing that aspect of its job. So let's find out. There he is, back of the net. And the starter. Oop. Yeah, almost started. Must have a bit of fuel left in it. Good times. Now then guys, onto the tank flush procedure. So first off, go through all the materials you're going to need. White vinegar, you're going to need enough of this to fill the tank up completely. On this bag it holds about 20 litres. Okay. Some sort of pure water, so deionized or distilled water. Distilled water is the best if you can get hold of it. My local supermarket couldn't get it, so I've just gone with deionized water. And also some baking powder. Okay. Okay, we'll go through it step by step. Okay guys, step one would be to prepare the tank for the vinegar. So that is essentially removing anything off the tank that you don't want to get in contact with the vinegar that could potentially be damaged by the acidity of the vinegar. So here I've removed from the bottom of the tank, I've removed the fuel valve or petcock, which way you want to call it, and also the screen filter mesh that goes here and that sits inside of the tank. It's worth noting when I first removed this was also covered in rust all the way down here, and I've cleaned it with some brake cleaner, so further proving that there's a lot of rust inside this tank. Okay. Okay, next thing is, since you've removed the fuel valve petcock, you need to bung that hole up with something. I chose just to use a wine cork. Here I just shaved off the edges to make it a bit of a tapered edge, and I just wedged it in there. It seems to be working pretty well. Don't worry about the drip, that's just the overflow. It's because I've tilted the tank backwards just to get this shot. Okay, so that's nice and bunged up and tight and it's not leaking. Okay, next step, obvious one, is now to fill the tank with the vinegar. Like I said before, you're going to fill it all the way up. And then after that, you should leave it for, I would say, 1 to 2 days. That should give it time for the vinegar to break up the rust that's inside the tank. This has now been like this for a couple of days, and I'll show you already. You can see some of the progress. The rust that's been lifted just by the condition of the vinegar. Lovely. Rust soup. Okay. Also, it's worth mentioning that I had the cap shut as well while it was just sat there for them 2 days. Okay. Okay, guys. So now it's been sat for a couple of days. I'm happy that it's treated and lifted most of the rust. This is the point where we have to flush out all the vinegar, so I've got a bucket ready, and I'm going to remove this cork. Hopefully I don't get vinegar everywhere, but let's see. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh. Lovely. Still quite clear though. Okay guys, bit of an update. So I've emptied all the vinegar out of the tank now. I'm about to start the flushing phase. I thought it was worth showing you what was contained in the bucket. So I've emptied the vinegar out, so I've lost quite a bit down the drain, but if you can see all the rust that came out of the tank. So I definitely believe this is a worthwhile step, because that stuff would have been caught by the screen filter, the fuel filter, and even worst case potentially in the carburetor. Ugh. Lovely. Okay, next step is to flush. So I'm going to fill the tank, only in small quantities this time, so I can shake it around without being too heavy. Fill it with some sort of pure water. Like I said, I'm using deionized water. I'd rather use distilled water, but I can get hold of it. The reason being that the purer the water, the less minerals and salts that content, less likely to have flash rust, which is actually what happened on my other bike. When I ran out of distilled water, I filled it up with some tap water just to finish the flushing process. I noticed that the inside the tank had a quick glaze of rust very quickly, so I'm trying to avoid that. So I've got my pure water, and then also I'm going to add baking powder. The reason being is to make this solution more alkaline, and that is going to neutralize the vinegar that's left over in the tank. Okay, let's just add this. Kind of like Breaking Bad. Okay, I'll empty that in, and then we'll shake this up, pour it into the tank. Ooh, what the fuck? Pour it into the tank, and then shake the tank. I'll start the first flush. I'll do. Okay guys, so next step is I've emptied out all the water and baking powder solution, and basically I've got the tank set up here upside down. So I've emptied it as much as possible, but the next step is to dry out the tank. So what I've done here, I've flipped the tank upside down, and I've hooked up my heat gun here, and also kept open the drain on the top here. So this is allowed it to heat up any water still in the tank to evaporate, and to any vapor to come out the top here. So this step is just basically just to run it for a certain period of time until you're happy that it's completely bone dry in there, and essentially that's the final stage of the cleaning and flushing out the tank. So let's get this going. Oh yes.